Hello, and welcome to this manifestation chat today, quantum manifestation chat. I'm super excited to be here with everybody. If you're watching this in the future or you're on TikTok live with me right now, I appreciate you for being here. What we are going to be talking about is somebody reached out to me the other day and they were saying their manifestations were not actualizing in the time that they wanted, and they're getting very frustrated and overwhelmed. Good morning. Hey, Shana. They're getting very overwhelmed. And I said, okay, anytime that somebody is coming to me and they're like, oh, my manifestations aren't manifesting, I say it is typically because one of these things. Okay. I've been binging your content all morning, excited you're live now. Oh, yay. Good. Okay. I'm glad to have you here too. It synchronistically works out like that oftentimes. Okay. So it's one of these things usually. So it's your self-concept. Do you believe that you're worthy and deserving of what you're trying to bring in? What type of thoughts are you feeling? What type of emotions are you feeling? What kind of beliefs are you holding about yourself and what is possible for you? Do you have micro goals? Do you have macro goals? Is your central nervous system regulated? Are you able to get in your imagination and get in your creativity? Because that is how you find the vibrational frequency of the person that you're trying to become, that new identity. How long during your day can you hold that new identity with their thoughts, feelings, and beliefs? Because if you keep having the same thoughts, feelings, and beliefs that you're currently having, then you'll get the same results, right? So it's very layeral, right? There's a lot of different steps, and I teach from like a holistic, spiritual, mental, physical, and emotional, because all of those things have to work in conjunction with one another, but they're all separate from one another. You're a whole being. Okay, those are all you, but they all need different things. Like your emotions need very much different things than like your subconscious, okay? Or your physical vessel needs different things than your multidimensional self, your consciousness. So if you look at it like that and say, well, where in my life might something be off kilter in one of these areas, sometimes it's easier to pinpoint what that thing is instead of trying to look at the whole entire body and heal from that space, right? That's also how chakra healing works too. Like, some things are housed in more chakras than others. And so if we break it down like, okay, maybe I have something going on with my throat chakra, it's a little bit easier to do the whole entire system at one time. So I wanted to talk about each one of these a little bit in each area. And so maybe you can today figure out like, oh, maybe this is where I'm experiencing something off that is preventing my manifestations from coming in. Okay, so make it a little bit easier. So if it is your first time meeting me, my name is Sage. I'm an expansion coach that helps Lightworkers shift into their multidimensional self so they can get on their most optimal timeline. Remember to like and subscribe and hit that bell notification so you know when new chats come up. Good morning. Good morning. Hey, Carrie. Thank y'all for sharing in the live as well. Let me drink some water here. Don't be talking. You're going to be drinking a lot of water. Okay, if you want to work one-on-one, if you resonate with my personality and teachings, you can head to the description box below for the different ways that we can do that, or you can head to my profile and click. I would love to have you in the School of Magic. That is our cosmic community of learning and support. This is where you're going to learn how to actualize your dreams and embody that identity. We're doing monthly live calls where I answer all your questions around spirituality and manifesting. Y'all also can connect with soul family from across the world. And when you join, you also get my money manifestation course and my inner child healing workshop as well. So that'll get you kickstarted on your journey. But it's a great place of support and learning, and we would love to have you there. But that is also in the description below or in my profile. Okay, so we are going to start with your central nervous system. Hey, Tabitha. Hey. Speaking of School of Magic members. Okay, so is your central nervous system regulated? It is very difficult to manifest when you are in fear and anxiety. When you have catastrophizing thoughts going on, we're going down anxiety rabbit holes, we're getting in thought loops. Our mind is love the School of Magic. Yay. We have a lot of fun there. Okay. Your thoughts, are they controlling your behaviors, right? So that's kicking on our fight or flight. What happens is that cuts you off from your creativity and your imagination, because from a physiology standpoint, you are basically like a scared animal. Okay. evolutionary wise, and you are just trying to get out of your current situation, and you are making fear-based decisions which lead to fear-based results. And so I dealt with a lot of anxiety and depression in my previous life, in my earlier chapters, and a lot of that was stemming from not having a regulated central nervous system. Because again, we're making those fear-based decisions, and then we get caught in these trauma loops that we don't seem to be able to get out of. And empaths and light workers are extremely powerful manifestors because we feel into emotions so intensely. Does anybody feel that way? You're just like, emotions are just always like slapping me in the face. Okay? Which at first, if you don't harness those things, it can really feel like a curse. Like, oh my gosh, life is so overwhelming. But that's also because as an empath and light worker, most of us have been through a lot of trauma, and all we have seen and experienced is negative emotions. And so from a subconscious level, a lot of times we seek out more anxiety-ridden relationships and experiences because that's all we know. That's all we've ever seen. Consciously, you know those things aren't good for you. Okay? But your subconscious is like, well, I don't know what unconditional love looks like. I don't know what peace looks like. I don't know what life being on easy mode looks like. So I'm going to continue to do these behaviors because this is safe. Sometimes whatever's on the other side of your manifestations is ease and grace and magic and whimsy and happiness and everything working out great. But if you are holding a lot of trauma in your body, the trauma is safe because that's a known factor. That is a known variable. That's why we get stuck in self-sabotaging behaviors, because if we didn't have those, our ego and our subconscious are basically, they just feel like they're out in the void and anything could happen. Something horrible could happen, but it's already horrible happening. Do you see what I'm saying? Like sometimes our like rock bottom that we're at, I'm not saying y'all are at rock bottom or whomever is watching this in the future, but rock bottom, sometimes there's a safety net there. It's like, well, A plus B equals C. Okay, this is where we get very afraid to step outside of our comfort zones, even though we know it would be a lot better on the other side. But it's like, I don't know what that other side looks like though. It's too scary to take that leap of faith on myself. But your central nervous system, when you are activated, you are in your lower chakras. In your root chakra, your sacral chakra, your solar plexus chakra, that's a lot of trauma is where that is held. Where your imagination and creativity and your ability to see into other timelines for yourself or your future, those are in these upper chakras up here. So that's why everybody preaches about, I don't want to say preaches, but it talks about, hey, we really need to be doing our shadow work because that trauma stuff is so heavy and dense and it keeps you in that trauma loop down there. When you start to really clear those things out, you start to open up to the possibilities of what is available for you moving forward. Are you being able to even perceive yourself in a different reality space? Like there was a time in my life where I just thought I was going to be broke forever because that's all I ever saw as a child. And I had to actively go in and heal those money wounds and the trauma things that happened to me as a child in order to clear that stuff out, to be able to even perceive that I could be a business owner, or that I could help other people on their journey, or that I could be financially wealthy, right? But when I was in those lower vibrational states, not my fault, it's just life. But when I was there, there's no way that I could ever conceive me being where I'm at right now because it was just so heavy and dense. It's really sludgy feeling when you're walking through life. It just feels like you're going against a grain constantly. But a lot of that is that foundational of you're just in fight or flight. I was in fight or flight for the most of my life, like up until I was like 27 years old. Okay, just constant fight or flight. I was actually very much addicted to stress and anxiety because I use it as fuel. And I know there's a lot of people that do that, especially like neurospicy people, because we have executive dysfunctioning. So sometimes it's like a brain chemistry thing, but there are tools that you can learn how to step outside of that paradigm, which I have and other people have. Okay. But it's like, oh, I'm going to wait till the last second. That works. I can do a 10-page paper right before it's due, which I've done multiple times. But what ends up happening is you do that and then you throw your body like so out of whack, and then you have like weeks of burnout afterwards. And when you are completely burnt out and exhausted, it is difficult to get out of that hole. It takes a long time. And so I have had to learn how to take action steps as my higher self and say, listen, I know that works, but it is destroying us at the same time. Okay, so we have to pre-circumvent those things with more forward planning, right? Like sometimes you have to come in and override that executive dysfunctioning, which I get is very difficult, and it's something that takes a while to learn how to do, but you can do it as somebody who has been there themselves, okay? And if y'all have questions, you can leave them in the comments here as well. Thank you for the follow, Vanessa. Okay, so our central nervous system, when it is kicked on, that fight or flight, it doesn't just go away. Like you have to get that cortisol out of your body, because that's how PTSD is created. It is all of that anxiety and fear and stress hormones just constantly running through you, which hardens and crystallizes. And that's where the heavy, dense feeling comes from. That is where those intrusive thoughts come from. It is in there for years and years and years and years. Like that was my experience. I had just built that up so much over time, and then it created the reality lenses that I was experiencing with other people, myself, jobs, money, all that stuff. So you have to layerly work back and start to deprogram the stuff in your subconscious, but also heal your central nervous system. And that's not something that just happens overnight. It happens over time, just like processing your emotions. If you're listening to this right now and you're like just now getting into processing your emotions, it's not something that just happens instantaneously. Like there have been probably emotions that have been out in there for years since childhood that you have not processed through. It's not something that you can just yank all that stuff out at one time. Okay? So when you are rebuilding your identity, these foundational steps, yes, they do take time, and they take due diligence, and you continuing to take steps every single day. But once you completely shift your whole foundation, it gets a lot easier. like I was listening to this TikTok the other day that was showing like this stairwell, and people are like, oh, well, it's, you know, it's really hard when you get to the top of that stairwell because you're exhausted and tired. But that's not exactly how consciousness expansion works and healing yourself. Like you got to do the quote unquote hard stuff in the beginning, and then it just gets like infinitely easier. So the way that I'm going to teach this today is these steps, okay, to get yourself to an easier space in life. But central nervous system is the very first step. Hey Tabitha, hey. Oh, we got two Tabithas in here. That is everything, because you cannot process your emotions, have new thoughts or feelings if you are in fight or flight, because you are in survival mode. Survival mode is literally, I just need to get out of the situation right now, and I will do anything I can to get out. But then that just self-prophesizes you continuing to be in that loop. So how do we regulate our central nervous system? Lots of different ways. That's like a whole entire other chat. but simple things that you can do is exercising. That doesn't even have to look like you going to the gym every day and pumping iron for an hour and a half. Like I've been going on an hour walk every day. You can do stretching. You can do qigong. You can do yoga. If you'll have suggestions, you can put them in the comments here. I would love to read them. But yoga, dancing in your house, you have to do something that is elevating your heart rate. It can't just be like, oh, I'm going to go on like a brisk 5 minute. Like you got to get it up. Okay. And if you back that up with the intention of, I am releasing energy that is no longer serving me, it will start to flush it out of your body. I have seen a direct correlation with how much money I make with how much my central nervous system is regulated. Like, it's a fact. Because if I have a bunch of fear running inside of me, I'm not coming up with new ideas. I am not having good energy during the day. I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm burnt out. Most of that is stemming from me having a activated central nervous system, being in fight or flight. As soon as I go to do something to regulate that, completely different energy shift. We're making completely different momentum for the rest of the day. You can't, and there's a lot of other ways. It doesn't have necessarily to be exercise. Like you can, I've been dunking my face in ice cold water in the morning when I first get up, because that's when your central nervous system is the most activated. That's why a lot of us experience like that panic fear in the morning time. And if you experience that and you don't do anything about it, you'll take that with you for the rest of the day. And then you'll be thinking thoughts from that space, or emotions from that space, or taking actions from that space. That's why it's really important not to be on your phone first thing in the morning if you're an empath or a light worker, and not checking your email, because it's encoded with other people's energy fields. Like if you're scrolling on TikTok and Instagram, every time you perceive somebody, you're absorbing their thoughts, feelings, and emotions if you do not have good energetic boundaries set in place first. Even me, okay? I have very good boundaries in place for my energetic field, and I still get influenced by those things. And so you need to be in your own energy field first thing in the morning without influences from other people, like not necessarily like family and things, but you need to be in your own energy field so you can regulate before you hop into other people's energy fields, or before you go to work or whatever you're doing. Because where you start your day is where you will carry your day. There has been a huge shift when I stopped getting on my phone in the morning and right before bed, because I'm in a good homeostasis place. Okay. But when I start listening to other people's fears, doubts, and worries, and like what's going on in the world and all that stuff, it just activates all that stuff within me. Even if it doesn't have anything to do with me, that's just because I'm a highly sensitive person, which if you're watching this, I am sure you are too. And so we have to really see how these things are influencing us, right? And the better energetic boundaries that you learn to cultivate, the better you can withhold from those things, but it still affects you, okay? Like it is still going to. I'm loving just listening. I wish there had been someone explain when I was repairing my PTSD. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. That's why I wanted to come on and explain some of these things. That is definitely a habit I need to break. It's very beneficial. And we'll talk about something else in a minute. but we got to regulate central nervous system. I recommend, if you are experiencing a lot of fight or flight right now, and you have anxiety or depression, put that spiritual stuff down for a minute, because none of that stuff matters if you're not regulated. Like the consciousness that you sit in when you are regulated is going to be absolutely mind-blowing compared to you being dysregulated. Like if you really want to advance spiritually, like psychically, or you're a coach, or you want to make content or any of that stuff, make your hyper focus right now regulating your central nervous system. It will completely change your life. And then you'll be set up for these next steps that I'm about to talk about. Okay? Like if I could go back, which I'm kind of doing right now, talk to younger sage me, I would say you need to regulate your central nervous system before you do any of this other stuff, because it doesn't matter if you're dysregulated. And you're going to not waste a whole bunch of time and energy, but you can really skyrocket if that's where you start. Like I went on a deep dive and was listening to neuroscientists and spiritual teachers and just trying to figure out what is the central nervous system? What does that mean? How does it affect me? And me gleaning those understandings, I could see how it was affecting every single area in my life. And once I started to regulate those things, all of a sudden my anxiety and depression really started to ease up. And I started to be able to envision myself in this new reality, in this new identity, because I wasn't thinking fear-based thoughts and feeling fear-based emotions. And so that's when I really started to see shifts in my outer reality, because now I'm feeling peace. You make completely different choices and thoughts and emotions when you're feeling peace, which can also be really scary. There was a time when I started to feel peace in my life, and like, why is nothing wrong? Because there was always something wrong when you're dysregulated. Okay, and not having anything wrong is a very scary feeling. That's what I mean with sometimes we think that we want these things consciously, but our subconscious is telling us different, because it's like, there has to be something wrong. Like, how do I function if I'm not stressed and anxious? And so I went through this long burnout period, because it was like, oh, you need to take a lot of rest. And that was going against so much of my programming and how I had interacted with myself in the world for so long. I was like, no, we have to rest. Like, we have to get off of this hustle grind thing where it's activating us 24/7 in order to make forward movement. So, central nervous system. Okay. I was going to say, I could talk about it for like an hour and a half. But do your research. Please do your research. It will change your life. And then we can take these next steps. Thank you so much. Oh, you're welcome. I know everyone is different. Do you know about how long before someone will see a difference? Again, it's very like tailored to who you are and what you have experienced, because somebody who has dealt with 20 something years of trauma is going to take them a little bit longer to regulate than somebody who didn't live that same experience. So it just depends. It depends on how you're processing your emotions, how much movement you're doing in your everyday, right? Yeah, it just depends on what we've been through. But I can tell you that if you listen, like if you really make this your focus for like a couple of weeks, you will see a difference in a couple of weeks. I'm talking about flood your consciousness with listening to podcasts and YouTube videos, taking a course, whatever you want to do on central nervous system. You will see a shift in a matter of weeks. Accepting rest is so important. Yeah, that can be hard for some people. We definitely need to fill up our own cup. I used to overfill my plate because I was addicted to stress. Because I didn't know anything. Because I didn't know any other way, type of life. I was like, no, I have to do this in order to be successful. I went to a therapist one time, like years ago, and he was like, if you don't take something off of your plate, you are going to have a mental breakdown. And I didn't want to hear anything that he said. I was like, what do you want me to do? Okay. And the consciousness level I was at, I didn't understand what he was saying, but I wish I had listened, because that ended up happening. And it was a long recovery from that. So sometimes that's that self-sabotaging behavior that we do that keeps us stuck in these realities that we really need to step outside of and make that conscious choice as a higher self about, I am not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to do it to myself. Just like the scrolling, the doom scrolling, that was a bad habit of mine. And I had to come in when I started doing that and say, we're not doing this anymore. Because it is dysregulating us. It is a numbing behavior. It is not helping us grow and evolve. Like, we got to let that go. And a whole assortment of other things I've had to let go throughout life. Sometimes it's easier than others. Like, some things are easy to let go of. Some things are years. Okay? But you have to continuously work at it. I did that too. It was so rough. Yeah, it can be. Okay, so the next step we're going to talk about here is your thoughts. What kind of thoughts are we thinking? Are we thinking positive thoughts, or are we thinking negative thoughts? Your thoughts are what create your reality out in front of you. Also your emotions. Thoughts and emotions together create beliefs, and that creates your reality. Okay? I used to be somebody that had extremely intrusive negative thoughts 24/7. I'm not saying you can get to a point where those things all the way go away. okay? Because like I still have things that come up, but what you can do is learn how to become the observer. You got to get up in those higher levels of consciousness and understand that you are not your thoughts. They are just things in your mind. That is your mental body. The whole reason, oh, thank y'all. The whole reason that you can decide whether you align with a thought means that you are the awareness behind it. That is literally just your brain throwing up stuff from your subconscious, from programming that you received in childhood. How your parents, teachers, and guardians taught you how reality works, how money works, how relationships work. Most of that stuff's not even yours. Babies are not born with self-limiting beliefs. They are not born with lack mentality and scarcity mentality. Everything that you have learned generally is picked up from somebody else, and they have their own trauma and their own self-limiting projections that they're putting onto you. Right? And that's not everybody's experience. Some people have they grow up in childhood homes where, everything's great. But even then, you're still going to have beliefs and values that you're picking up from other people that don't necessarily align with your soul. That you have to learn how to defragment and deprogram. So where are those thoughts coming from? We really got to get to the root of that. Most of it is from childhood. When I'm doing sessions with people, I'm like, okay, well, where do you think this belief started? And it's like, oh, I saw my parent or teacher or guardian or something emulate this, and then I picked it up. That voice in your head that is telling you you're not good enough, you are too old, you're too young, couldn't be you, all those things, we think that is our own voice. 9 times out of 10, if you ask yourself the question, where did I hear that for the first time? It's going to be from somebody else. What happens is you start to internalize it as your own voice because you're hearing it in your own mind. Like children hear those things. I did. I would hear my grandmother self-deprecate and say very negative things about herself. I would hear it in my brain and I would be like, oh, I'm having those thoughts about me too. But it was literally just her voice. But I internalized it that way. So I had to work with one of my inner children to help show her hey, those aren't actually our thoughts. Those are just something that we heard over and over and over again. And maybe those are things that you picked up from social media or your friends that you're hanging out with or a relationship that you've been in. But you got to ask yourself continuously, where did I hear that? Why do I think that? Self-inquisitory questions, shadow work, is how you get to the root. That's why I'm such a big proponent of inner child healing. And that's why it's one of the foundational practices that I teach and use with clients. Because if you are an adult, okay, you are at a completely different consciousness level than you as a child. Something that you don't think is traumatic, a 5 or 7 or 9-year-old is very traumatic for them. Because they're teeny tiny little children that do not have understandings of how the world works or why their parents and teachers and guardians are doing certain things because they have their own trauma. All they're doing is internalizing it as, oh, it's my fault, or I'm not worthy, or I'm not deserving, or I'm not good enough because they're acting this way. So that's why you have to go in and talk to your inner children and help them with their self-concept and help them understand why things happen the way that they did and that it doesn't have anything to do with them. Because the consciousness you're at 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, you know why they don't. Okay, so you got to go in and heal the root of where those things started in order to release them. And a lot of people don't want to look at those things because it brings up a lot of scary feelings and emotions. And sometimes that's very overwhelming. But you do also need to ask yourself, are those my feelings and emotions? Or are those my feelings and emotions that my inner child is feeling that they have not had space to process because they haven't felt safe? Or they didn't learn how to do that. A lot of, when I was very much into my own inner child healing, I realized a lot of that stuff that I was feeling and thinking wasn't me in the here and now. I don't think those things, I don't feel those things. But there's these inner children inside that never got the space to heal. They don't even know what's going on. Okay, they are just living in lack and scarcity and fear and anxiety. And so I have to come in as the guardian in the higher self and explain to them, like, hey, we're not living that life anymore. That's an old identity. We are so far removed from that. We have different tools and resources now. We don't have to cling on to that. That's where we have to start building safety and security within ourselves, because nothing will ever give you that. Nothing outside of you will ever make you feel safe and secure. No relationship, no money, no house, no car, nothing. That's why we get these things sometimes and we still feel that emptiness within, because those things are very fleeting. It's like, okay, well, I have it, now what? That's why people get in like a feast and famine with money sometimes, where you like have money and then you don't, and then you have money and then you don't. It's because you're pedestalizing money, saying like, okay, when I have it, I feel safe and secure, but then when I don't, I feel insecure. You got to find that inside. Because when you hold safety and security within here, nothing can touch you. It literally does not matter what is going on in your external experience ever. Like when I hit that place within myself, it was extremely eye-opening, because I was like, it literally does not matter what happens to me in any circumstance. I know that I will figure it out, and I'm solid, and I got me. Like, sure, like life be life, and sometimes it's very hard, and there's like difficult things that come my way, but I handle them in a completely different fashion than I would have in the past, because I'm not allowing my external circumstances to dictate how I feel internally. And when you do that, reality is a lot easier to traverse, and it's a lot easier to bend, if that makes sense, because you're sitting in a different perceptual awareness lenses. And instead of saying, why is life happening to me? Now we're giving our power away. You can say, why is this happening for me? And how can I grow and evolve from it? That's a completely different space of life to be in. That is where you see wild success, because you're not taking it as personal hits against your self-worth and if you deserve something or not. It's like, no, like, this has nothing to do with me out here, okay? I can shift my reality from an internal out instead of an out inwardly. Yes, precisely, yeah. Oh, thank you for the follow, thank you. Okay. Your thoughts, most of your thoughts are coming from your subconscious. Consciously, that's why it's intrusive. It's intrusive. Okay. It's like, I know I shouldn't be thinking these things, but they're still coming up. Oh, thank you for the follow. They're still coming up. And I still have thoughts come up like that too, right? Because I'm always you're always going to actively be working on things. Like, there's not going to be a point where you're like, oh, I'm healed. Because every new level that you get to in life, you have to have contrast to get you there. Like, you have to have your ego checking you. You have to feel uncomfortable. You have to have self-limiting beliefs come up. That's how you grow and evolve. If they weren't there, then you would just be the same person all the time. So once you accept that your limiting beliefs and your ego are there to help you grow, that was a pivotal time in my life. A huge chapter shift. Because instead of feeling shame and guilt for the things that I'm feeling and thinking, I was just like, it's fine. I love you regardless. I love you unconditionally, no matter what you are throwing up right here. That's not easy to do. I raised my granddaughter until she was 18. Now she's 21, and we've gone through, I'll wait for your second half here. I was talking to my subconscious the other day, which you can learn how to do. You can learn how to directly access your subconscious, which is a very nice tool to have. And so I was laying on my bed and I was like, hey, subconscious, I want you to tell me all of the fears that we are experiencing right now. Like, I want you to tell me all the thoughts. And it was not wanting to say the things. And my conscious brain was trying to rationalize over them. Like, oh no, we don't think that. Like, no, we don't need to talk about that. Like, it's not a big deal. Let's not focus on that. And I was like, no. Okay, conscious brain. I was like, subconscious, This is a process that we're going through together. Okay. I do not hold any shame or guilt for anything that you are thinking or feeling. It is literally just thoughts. We know this is not us. This is programming. These are things that we were taught by other people. This is things that social media has burrowed into our brain. This has nothing to do with us as a multidimensional being. We are whole. We are prosperous and abundant. These are filter lenses. This is not representative of us as the creator. I do not care whatever thoughts that you want to tell me. I'm embracing you, and I love you, and I appreciate you for trying to protect me and keep us in our comfort zone, because I needed to do that for a long time to survive, because I did go through a lot of trauma. So thank you for that. That's great. Okay. So when you embrace your ego and beliefs and love them unconditionally, they really start to relax, because they're trying to keep you safe. But if you come in and you say, hey, I appreciate you for that. Thank you. I'm actually the one that's keeping us safe, and I need you to just chill out a little bit. Okay. And redirect that power that you have, because your subconscious and your ego are so incredibly powerful. They are taking all of your past experiences and your past narratives and are creating your reality out in front of you and your future reality. And so a lot of conversations that I'll have with my ego and subconscious are like, hey, you are so amazing. Like, how incredible is that you could just create my whole entire reality? That's wild. Okay, that's part of the human experience. I contracted to have an ego and a subconscious in this human body. And I'm like, thanks. That's great. How about instead, though, we start focusing on the best case scenario? I know we needed to focus on the worst case scenario for a long time to keep us safe and survive, which totally get that, and thank you. But how about we just try this other thing over here and see what happens? Because it's not their fault. It's not the subconscious and the ego's fault that it is looking for worst case scenario, okay? Because it's a human physiology thing. When you are a cave person, okay, back in the day, if you don't look for the worst case scenario, you're not going to make it. Okay? You are not going to survive. You need to be looking over here for the tiger. You need to be looking over here for the landslide. You need to be looking over here for poisonous mushrooms, whatever. Okay. So we have not really evolved a lot past that. We still do that to this day as a safety measure, especially if you have abandonment and trust wounds from childhood. Of course, you're going to look for the scary things so that it doesn't happen to you again. But that's where we start to have a consciousness gap. That's our inner children. You know that you're not in those same places and spaces, but your subconscious and your inner children are like, oh, who's going to hurt us next? Of course, we're not going to have enough money next month. Of course, our coworkers are going to have negative interactions with us. Of course, my ex-husband is going to start an argument with me this week. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy, is what ends up happening, because you're looking for it. What you look for, you're going to find. Okay. Again, it's not your fault, because that's just how life works. But you have to come in, one, figure out why you're doing those things, where it's coming from, so you can step in and say, hey, I got to make a different choice here. I will not predict my future based on past narratives of things that have happened back there. And that's something you have to learn how to do, right? It takes time. When I first started doing that, it was not easy to catch, because I just was the trauma. That's why a lot of these different concepts I'm talking about here, you have to do them in tandem with one another in order to become that higher self, to look at what's going on. And I'll give an example. So earlier, I was doing some shadow work prompts, and it was one of them was, who have you not forgiven in your life? And somebody came up in my mind, and I was like, no, I've forgiven them. And my subconscious was like, okay, conscious me was trying to trick me and tell me that I had. And my body, the way that I was feeling, was telling me otherwise. It was like, no, you really haven't. Not like you really should. When you are holding on to things that are poisoning self, it's not hurting that other person. All it is hurting you. And now you're carrying around a whole bunch of shame and guilt and anger that's not serving you in any type of capacity, and it's radiating out into every area of your life. When I'm doing client sessions, oftentimes they'll come to me with one thing, like career, finances, relationships, and all that stuff. I'm like, okay, well, what about all this stuff over here? Because we don't think those things are correlated, but me holding on to resentment is going to affect every area of my life. And so when I was writing that question, I got this like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to think about that, because it's going to bring up all those memories from what happened between us. And I had to come in as a higher self and be like, no, we're going to sit here and we are going to process through this. Like, we're not going to scapegoat and we're not going to bypass. Let's work through it. Like, I know it hurts. I know it's scary. I know it doesn't feel good. But would you rather carry all that trauma way down in your chakra system and your energy field, and now you've got these lenses that you're wearing of holding on to like old, stuck and stagnant energy? Or would you rather just let it go? But the process that I had to go through is I had to sit through those memories, and those emotions started coming up, and then I started getting angry because I was like, yeah, that was a really awful situation. And then it started like poking at my self-worth, right? And my confidence, and like, oh, I could have done this and that and all that stuff. And I'm like, or you could just let it go. You could just not hold on to that past narrative and say, I'm not going to let that dictate how I feel. Like, it's old stuff. Let it go, right? But you got to process with yourself on these things in order to release them. So that was a long thing, but with repetition, okay, your thoughts, how you reprogram those things. Everybody knows about affirmations. Affirmations, I'm going to give you a caveat on those, okay? It's not easy to do, but you have to feel it to heal it and release it. Oh, yeah, for sure. And we're about to get to emotions. Like the thoughts, there's central nervous system, thoughts, and then emotions up here. But you got to actually feel that stuff. Like this morning, I was not feeling hot, like great, when that shadow work prompt came up, and I'm like, oh, we gonna sit here and we're gonna feel it. Okay? Because that's the only way to get it out and change the thought processes. So affirmations, I want to give everybody a caveat on that. If you're just saying affirmations that don't bring up feelings and emotions for you, it's going to take forever. It will literally take forever. That's why you have to listen to thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands worth of affirmations. Okay? You need to be saying affirmations that create an emotional shift within yourself. And that takes some homework. Okay? That takes you getting out a sheet of paper and writing all of your limiting beliefs down and figuring out what their counter affirmations are. Because I can look up general affirmations all the live long day, but that's not necessarily going to create a shift within me. It will over time, like over hundreds and thousands of hours. But if you can find affirmations and create your own tailored affirmations, it will create that vibrational shift within you. And that is what is really, that's what's going to heal your central nervous system, because you got to do that too. Okay. So I'm going to give everybody like an exercise to do right now together, so you can see what I'm talking about in real time. Okay. So I want you to think of a limiting belief that you have right now, or just something that runs in the background or pops up every now and again. It can be about finances, relationships, love, whatever. Okay. So think about that now. Now I want you to think of a counter affirmation. So like a positive one. So let's say like, I am unworthy. Okay. Let's take that one. I am unworthy. So the counter affirmation would be, I am worthy, right? Okay. So I am worthy. I want you to say your counter affirmation right now, just in your mind or out loud. And I want you to ask yourself how you feel saying that. It's probably like, that's all right. Like, it's neutral, right? Like, it's probably not eliciting because you don't believe that right now. You don't believe it. There's no point in, like, when I was working on my confidence, I would say all the live long day, I am confident, and it wasn't doing nothing because I didn't actually believe that. And so I had to, we're going to talk about something else, okay? This other technique here, but what I started doing was saying, I am working on my confidence. Because I can believe that. I can always be working on something. And you can take that with you if you want today. Like, all of the affirmations that I didn't really believe, I would say I am working on. And then I eventually became a very confident person. Because you can always work on things. So take that one with you. It's very beneficial. But this next one, okay? So your subconscious wants evidence-based reasons as to why something is not true or is true. You have to give it evidence. And you have to back it up with an emotion. Okay? So we're going to do this together. So I want you to say your affirmation right now to yourself. Your positive affirmation. Okay, so I'm going to take worthy for this example. I am worthy because. What comes after that? I am, whatever your affirmation is, because. Okay. Now the third part to this, and so that means. I am worthy because I am loved. And that means I am capable. That right there, just even for me, brought up like, yeah, that's right. Okay. That is giving cause and effect. That is when you have an extremely tailored affirmation to yourself. Like, I'll give you another example. So I was out on my walk earlier and I found a whole bunch of change on the ground. Love that. Abundance coming to us that I didn't ask for. I said, I am abundant because I always manifest money out of thin air. So that means I am wealthy. That is a lot more powerful affirmation that is tailored to something that just happened to me in my real experience. And like, I'm going to feel that energetically a lot differently than just saying I am wealthy. Because my brain is going to be like, but why? For what? Okay, give me a reason. So I would really, really, really recommend getting out a sheet of paper and writing 10 limiting beliefs. You can write goals at the top too, like 2 goals up there, and say, why do I think I can't have this? Or why do I think I can't be this? Or why I can't do this? And then take a little while to write that affirmation equation. It will really reframe things for you. And what happens is when you're doing this type of programming with your subconscious, is it starts to loosen the grip of the intrusive thoughts during the day. You start thinking those things less and less and less. When you start clearing out one self-limiting belief, like when you prove to yourself something is not true, it radiates out into your whole entire subconscious, and then it starts to question all of your self-limiting beliefs. Like there is a time where I was like, I will never be able to make more than $2,000 a month. Okay. I buckled down and started working on that. And then I made $4,000 the next month, and then $6,000 the next month, and then $8,000 the next month in a 4-month period. Like, that completely shifted my whole entire scape on wealth consciousness. You can never tell me that I am not capable of hitting that capacity ever again. And it also healed multiple layers within my other limiting beliefs. Because I'm like, well, dang, if I can do this, then I don't think this other stuff is true either. And then I started working on the other things, and it was so much easier. So sometimes when we're trying to tackle these limiting beliefs that we have over whether it's reality or self or relationships or whatever, work on one. Because that one is going to shift your entire self-concept, which we're going to get into in a second. It will shift your whole entire persona. Okay? But a lot of times people don't want to dig into that stuff because it's going to bring up emotions. It doesn't feel good. When I was doing this exercise for myself the other day and I was writing these self-limiting beliefs, it didn't make me feel good. Okay? It felt bad. And then I had to sit with those emotions and process them and say it's totally fine that we feel that way. It doesn't mean our manifestations aren't coming in. It actually is indicative of us having our manifestations coming in. Because you process those emotions, now you have energetic space to receive. You don't, and you sweep them under the rug, they're not coming in. Okay? So feeling your emotions is key, which is our next step that we're about to get into. Okay, so we have a regulated central nervous system. Oh, thank you for the follow, Heather. Yeah. Please do this exercise. It is so beneficial. It is going to completely change how you interact with your thoughts. Like, it is a game changer. Okay? And your affirmations. Let me tell you something else. Okay? If you do this and you create your own affirmations tape, like record yourself saying them, I do that. I can listen to somebody else's affirmations all the live long day that are not tailor-made for me, and they will work eventually. You listen to your own voice with tailor-made affirmations, you're going to clear those things out very quickly. Because because your subconscious is going to receive it in a completely different capacity. So you can literally take that list of 10 limiting beliefs, convert it over to affirmation because... So that means read them back to yourself on a voice recorder and listen to them at night on a loop. It's going to be a huge game changer. Okay? Instead of listening to other people's. I know some people are like, well, I don't want to listen to my voice. Well, you need to get over that. Okay? And then how I got over that is to voice note people in my life. I would literally voice note everybody in my life for like 6 months straight, and I would listen to every single one back. And it was awful in the beginning. It was very cringy because I was like, ugh, my voice. Like, do I sound like that? Right? And after a while, I started to love my voice. Like, I got over it. But you have to, like, that's what I'm talking about with you got to, like, push through your comfort zone in order to heal. So I had to go through a period where, like, it sucked. But now I can listen to my own affirmations tapes, and they're way more beneficial than listening to like random affirmations from somebody else, which I'm not against those. Okay, just to say that. Okay, it's gonna be more impactful if it's your own. Hey Jason, hey, you have a calming voice. Oh, thank you, I appreciate that. I always try and bring the calm, chill vibes. So thank you for reflecting that to me. Okay, so we are gonna talk about emotions because that is the next step here. Okay, I'm going to run and take like a 2-minute break so I can go to the restroom because I've been drinking all this water. So I'm going to pause the live for just a second, but I will be right back, okay? And everybody else can take a potty break if you want. Emotions are the fuel for your manifestations. What you think that you want are the 3D manifestations, the house, the car, the money, but just like we talked about before, nothing is going to bring you happiness or safety and security. Those things are very fleeting. Okay, that's why we manifest things in our life and then we get bored and we're on to the next thing. You got to feel those things within yourself in order for them to stick, right? Without needing external things to validate. If we want to feel feelings of peace and joy and happiness and bliss and magic and whimsy, those emotions and this might not be representative of everybody's journey because everybody's at different places and spaces. You might be great with your emotions, okay? But a lot of us were not taught how to process them. So we have a lot of anger and frustration and constrictedness and fear and anxiety sitting within us, and we bypass them because it hurts to feel them. I know how bad it hurts. I've been there too. And still to this day, like something like wonky happens in my reality, like I'm going to have a very elicited emotional response. But now where I'm sitting, I can process it from a higher observation space instead of thinking that I am those emotions or that they're going to last forever. Emotions are just something that you channel, just like your thoughts. That's why you experience a wide variety of them. Okay. But if you are not processing those things, you don't have space. You do not have space for the quote unquote good ones. And we're not going to place value over our emotions either, because if you do not experience sadness and anger and frustration and fear and anxiety, you would have no idea what joy and peace feels like, or happiness or bliss. So it's a pendulum, okay? You have to feel those heavier, dense emotions in order to grow as a person. Or you're just going to stay the same person always. Like, your emotions are just indicators that something is out of alignment. Like, they're just like, hey, either, something in our reality right now is not copacetic with our soul, or you got some inner children or past versions in there that held it down for years and were never allowed the space to feel their feelings or understand what their feelings are. So they're throwing up all this stuff from the past, and you aren't making that correlation that it's coming from deep within you from the past, and you think it's you right now. Or a lot of people are afraid to feel their emotions because they're like, oh, okay, well, and that was me at one point, because I was like, okay, well, I was very anxious and depressed, like very deep states of depression for a very long time. And I was like, well, if I start to feel my emotions, I'm going to snap back and I'm going to be in those states again. In reality, I'm a completely different person than I was then. I have different tools and resources. There's literally no way that I could be that person again. It's just impossible. Because I have grown and evolved as a person, and my consciousness is so far expanded that I can't go back into that identity. I just can't. Can you feel anxiety and depression states still come on? Yeah, but it's going to be in a different capacity than previously. You're going to handle it in a different way, right? So this is where we have to start to trust ourselves. Like, you can learn all the spiritual, esoteric things that you want to, but if you're not able to implement them and trust yourself, then what is the point? Right? It's like, I was watching this video the other day, and somebody in the comments was like, and there's like no shade to them or whatever, it just had me like thinking. This person was like, I can't get out of negativity because there's so many negative people around me. And I'm like, the reason there's negative people around you is so that you can get out of being around negative people. Like, you can't hermit in your home and heal. Like, you literally have to have triggers in order to grow. So a lot of times when you're experiencing those things, people think that they're going backwards because they're like, oh no, I'm doing something wrong. No, it actually, if you look at it in that lens and you say, okay, well, yeah, this means I'm doing something wrong, then that's going to be your reality. But if you look at it as like, oh, great, this is a space that I can make a different conscious choice, and I can handle this in a different way, and I can respond instead of react. And this is actually what's going to shift me into my new identity. Like, when I started holding boundaries with people, I told the universe, like, okay, I'm on my self-concept. I will not allow myself to take anything less than my self-worth than what I know that I deserve. Well, guess what happened? All of these people in my life started checking my boundaries, and I was like, what the heck? Like, I said I was done with that, okay? And I was like, why are all these people triggering me? And I had to make a choice in that moment to either perceive it as me going backwards or me having an opportunity to change my self-concept and my identity. Like, I have to have a challenge in order to push through and become a new person. Been there with everyone in the past. Yeah, like you have to have circumstances come your way in order to shift. It's just like with your emotions. Like your emotions come up and you can either attach and identify with them, or you can just ask an inquisitory question. Why are you here? What are you trying to show me? I literally talk to my emotions like they are children. Like when I'm experiencing fear or anxiety or anger or sadness or whatever, I don't disassociate from them. I used to do that. I would never feel my feelings. I would observe them. Now I have realized, like, I need to figure out why that's coming up and also feel okay with it coming up. Like sometimes you're just sad. Sometimes you're just angry. Sometimes you're an empath and a light worker who's connected to the collective grid, and there's a lot of wonky stuff that's going on in the world right now, and you intuitively pick up on that, and those aren't even your emotions. Okay, so one, ask yourself, is this mine, or is this something that I'm picking up on collectively? If it is yours, don't feel shameful and guilty. Shame and guilt doesn't help anybody with anything. All it does is hurt you and eat your energy. It's totally fine to be angry. It's totally fine to be sad. It is totally fine to be upset. What we don't want to do is be in that state forever. Okay, because that's where we start to get that hard and crystalline energy and starting to get into anxiety and depression. But when we ask those inquisitory questions and process it, like, yeah, you might have a really angry day. You might have a really sad day. I still have those, but I don't attach to them. And I say, this is not going to be my forever. And the more I lean into it, the less I have to experience it. Like now, I can go through those emotions very quickly, and then I'm out of them. But me in the past, we would have just been angry for a week. Just you sometimes are the one that are perpetuating those states because of your attachments. Just like with happiness, like we're not happy all the time, right? Like you also have to be okay with not experiencing those things all the time and being okay with just being a channeler of them, right? Like it's okay to feel the pendulum. So accepting your emotions, because the whole point of this emotions chat was you don't actually, quote unquote, want the 3D manifestations like you think that you do. Okay, because let's say that you are hyper-focused on manifesting a house, which is great. Love that. Like, we want to have goals and we want to have things that we're trying to bring in. But if you are hyper-focused on a house, okay, and we're like so constricted on that, and we're like, when is it going to happen? How is it going to happen? All of this stuff. You are missing all this other stuff that the universe is trying to bring you. That may, like, just completely amaze and wonder you and like help you in all areas of life. So instead of hyper focusing on this over here, how about we just focus on feeling more joy and feeling more happiness and feeling more peace in our everyday experience? You got to get there by processing those heavier emotions. Okay, so you got to look at that stuff. But if you just focus on the emotions, you naturally become a vibrational match to a whole new reality. Not just, let me get this house over here, because you can do that, but you're still going to feel awful in other areas of your life. But if you focus on your overall wellness and what your emotional state is on a day-to-day basis, and how can I feel like a little bit better, how can I move up the vibrational ladder, like frequency ladder, and not feel shameful or guilty when I feel bad, it shifts your whole entire scape. The people around you change, the opportunities that come your way, synchronicities, you feel more magical in life. Like, that is when life really starts flowing together, is when you focus on the emotions, because we're emotions. We are energy in motion. Okay, so if you focus on emotions, it resets everything. Okay, but again, you got to take a look at those heavier, dense emotions and why we're not wanting to feel them, and learning how to process them, so that you can be an open channel to receive better feeling ones, right? But not overly attaching to the better feeling ones either. Because if you're always chasing happiness and bliss and joy, you're going to have a real big letdown in life, because life be life in. Okay. and you're going to go through periods where you're going to be sad and angry and frustrated, and that is okay. And we got to find balance. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so now we're going to talk about a couple different things here. Your comfort zone. So we talked about central nervous system, thoughts, emotions, beliefs. Let's talk about that first. Okay, so beliefs are emotions and thoughts tied up with one another. The more thoughts that you attach to emotions, the deeper those beliefs are going to go in. So if you are constantly thinking lack and scarcity thoughts, and then you're also feeling lack and scarcity, then you will experience more of that. You will get it reiterated out in your reality. So that's where thoughts and emotions, why that's a foundational layer, is because if you can start having new thoughts through those practices that we talked about, and you start working on processing your emotions, and then we start having better feeling thoughts, and we start feeling better emotions, and we start to tie them in with one another, that's how you recalibrate your identity and your external experience and your internal experience, because you are creating new neural pathways, and you are telling your brain and your body, hey, I don't like that old stuff anymore. I don't like feeling in fear. I don't like feeling in anxiety. I don't like being triggered. I don't like being in fight or flight. What I prefer is thinking forward moving, and the portal of possibilities, and believing in what is possible for me in the best case scenario, because that feels better. And then that becomes your dominant vibration. And then all of a sudden, you just are thinking amazing thoughts throughout the day. Like the thoughts that I think now, like, yeah, I still have some negative things come up every now and again, but it is nothing like before. Okay? Like intrusive thoughts all day in the past that I could not get a handle on. Like it was overruling my life. Now I have these, and I'm like, that doesn't feel good. Like that thought it is not in alignment with who I am. And you can do this through asking yourself, is this an abundant thought or is this a lack thought? Is this a constrictive thought or is this an expansive thought? What kind of emotion does this thought bring me? What can I interject in here instead? And when you first start doing this, is it easy? No. But the more you do it, it's a muscle that you build. And then you start to catch multiple self-limiting beliefs. Then you start to become the observer, and now you can catch them. I can catch my self-limiting beliefs very easily now. I can be like, oh, nope, I am not aligning with that. We need to think a different thought right now. Instead of just like it overtaking you and consuming you, and you are the thought. Oh, thank you for that. I appreciate that, Kimberly. Hey. And so all of these processes that I'm talking about is learning how to be the version above them. Because these things that are happening in your experience are part of your human experience. These are helping you become the multidimensional self and learning how to find balance within and not letting that human side of you, like those physiology things, be at your wheel of consciousness. Okay, not that there's anything wrong with them, but they're not always making the best choices. Okay. Okay, stepping outside of your comfort zone is incredibly important. You cannot do the same things and expect different results. If there are things that you want in life, but they're scaring you because it's going to ask new levels of confidence and self-assuredness, you're not going to get there by not doing them. Like there was a time where I wanted to become a coach like I am now, but I was terrified to get on camera because I did not like the way that I talked. I didn't like the way that I sounded. I couldn't verbalize or conceptualize these concepts like I'm talking about right now. Like I was starting at ground zero of zero self-confidence and self-esteem. Okay. And I had to really look in the mirror and ask myself, do you want to stay where you're at right now? Or do you want to push through the fear and become a new person? Or become the person that you were always meant to be, that you know that you are, right? It's a remembrance. And I just decided, like, I'm going to be afraid every time I try something new. Every time. Even to this day. Okay. I was nervous before I got on this live. Okay. I was like, oh, if maybe I don't have enough information, or they're not going to, whatever. I'm going to do it anyway. because you're always going to feel that way. Everybody feels that way. Even people that are the tippy top of their industry that want, they have gotten used to that feeling. I have gotten used to wanting to throw up. I have gotten used to my imposter syndrome. I have gotten used to my self-worth being checked and having sweaty armpits. Okay? Like, it's just a part of being human, okay, is having to put yourself in challenges in order to grow. If you just get used to fear and you say, I'm going to do it anyway because I'm the higher self and I want change in my life, and so I'm going to do whatever I need to do to make that happen, you become a very determined person. And I was made a video about this yesterday. Like, confidence, that is a skill that you learn. A lot of people are not born with confidence. They learn that over time through being a very determined person. They say, I will not allow anything to keep me from my dreams. And you just keep on and keep on and keep on and keep on. And all of a sudden you become a very confident person because you're being accountable to self. I became an extremely confident person because of my accountability to my dreams and my visions. I gotta go for now. Glad I found your live. Oh, thank you. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. This will be on YouTube later if you want to watch the rest of it on my YouTube channel. Okay. But I also had to step outside my comfort zone constantly. I had to get used to being uncomfortable and trying new things and showing up messy instead of not showing up at all. Like, I do lots of workshops and lives and mentorship programs. Like, those, I have to start at ground zero on a lot of those things, and I have to push forward and say, I can always do it again. I can always improve. I can always get better. I can always communicate in different ways. I can always come at it in a different lens. But what I'm not going to do is just not do it. And so you got to ask yourself at the end of the day, like, am I willing to half-ass things? Okay, or am I going to be the type of person that completely commits and goes all in and does what I can every single day and constantly pushes myself to evolve? Is it always easy? No. Okay, it is not. And it's okay if sometimes, you don't always do that follow through. Like, sometimes that's a gradual thing that you have to teach yourself. Right. I found something that was very beneficial if you're a content creator. Just a pro tip is to tell people you're going to be somewhere at a certain time. And if you're a very self-integral, accountable person, it's like, well, I'm not going to not do it. Right? I said I'm going to be there, so I'm going to be there. So that was very beneficial for me, especially when I was putting together like workshops and lives and things like that. I was like, well, I already said it. But you got to, if you want to become a new identity and have a new life, you're going to have to do different things, because otherwise you're just going to be who you are right now. Hello, hope you are doing well. Sage, taking a break from working in my garden. Oh, that sounds lovely. Great tip. Thank you. Yeah, that's actually how I did my first workshop. Is I was so petrified. I was like crying my eyes out because I was so afraid. Like, literally just crying my eyes out beforehand. And I was like, well, I'm not a liar. And so I told these people, I'm going to be here at this day, at this time. And so I'm going to be there and we're going to figure it out. Because confidence is something you get afterwards. Confidence is repetition and teaching yourself to be accountable and showing up anyway and stepping outside of your comfort zone. When you get comfortable with being uncomfortable, you become confident. Confident, if you're waiting to become confident to do something, that day is not going to come. I can promise you that. Okay, you get confident through a commitment to yourself to go after your dreams and do the things that you want to do and work on them every single day. Okay, so the next one is, stepping outside of your comfort zone, self-concept. All of these things that I have been talking about lead up to your entirety of self-concept. Self-concept is how you view yourself, how you talk to yourself, how you love yourself. It is how you interact with the outer reality and your inner reality. Your entire outer reality is a projection of your internal concept. What you are willing to participate in how you think that the world is interacting with you is how you internally are acting with yourself. So like I was doing a session with somebody the other day, and they were saying like they weren't getting the emotional needs met in their romantic relationship that they wanted. And I said, are you meeting your own emotional needs? And they said no. And I'm like, well, how do you expect somebody else to do that? How do you expect to pull in somebody that is emotionally intelligent if you are not giving that to self? Like, you're not a vibrational match for it. Like, why would you expect that from somebody? Like, why would you expect a good communicator in another person if you were not a good communicator? Like, you literally cannot pull them in. Okay, that's where we get in these trauma loops, because we think that it's something that can be like healed or worked on outside of us, when it's actually, if you just go in and work on that with yourself, then your whole entire outer reality will shift. So like, do you think you're worthy and deserving of your dreams, goals, and desires? And that, again, that takes a lot of processing of, why do we think that we're not? Right? You got to look at that stuff first in order to insert the new programming or feel the new emotions or have the new thoughts or have the new beliefs. So self-concept is key. Do you feel like you deserve what you're going after? Because if you don't, it's going to be forever away. Right. So we got to, before you take any action steps, if you don't believe that you're deserving, you're not going to take the right action steps. You're going to take disempowered steps or have disempowered thoughts. And in order to be in that new identity where you're a CEO, boss babe, millionaire, they don't have that self-concept. They think they're rock stars. They think that they're capable of anything. Like, you got to really perceive the identity that you're trying to step into and ask, what kind of thoughts are they thinking? What kind of beliefs are they holding? Do they think they're worthy and deserving? Because if you were embodying those things in the here and now, you would be that person. So we got to find out where the gap is, right? And, some things take patience and some things takes time and some things take consciousness expansion. So I don't want to make it think that like, oh, I can just always quantum leap into that immediately, because there's a lot of different layers, but there's a gap somewhere, right? Like, and sometimes it's consciousness expansion, right? And just working on these things. Okay. So, goals. We need to have micro goals and macro goals. If you're macro goals, so your macro goals are your big goals up here, okay? The CEO, boss babe, millionaire, living in a mansion, traveling all over the world, all that stuff. We love that, okay? But if you're not taking action steps right now, you're never going to get there. If you are getting overwhelmed and overstimulated and overexhausted and we're not doing what we need to be doing, we're sitting on the couch and trying to manifest and thinking all that stuff's going to show up at our door, it's not going to happen. But those macro goals have to be inspiring enough for you to get up every day. Like, some people aren't dreaming big enough. Like, they're dreaming very small and constricted because of their self-concept. Right? They're like, oh, that could never be me. Why not? Other people are living that life. There's no difference between you and them. It's their self-concept. And these things that we're talking about right now. And, maybe they came into this life with less trauma and things like that, but that doesn't mean that you can't work through those things and get to those places and spaces, because I guarantee you, whatever experience that you're trying to get to, whatever reality you're trying to get to, there has been somebody who has started at the same place as you. Maybe not the exact same experience, but they have came from lack and scarcity and they made it through. So that's also why it's very important to find representors that you can relate to that have started in a similar space, so you know that it's in your realm of capability as well. So it's probably not going to serve you to have a mentor that you're looking up to that's a millionaire that got an inheritance, okay, or grew up in a very functional household. You need to find somebody who was going through it in life to be that representator for you. And listen to them, because they have the tools and resources that you need. Okay, and the consciousness expansion. So it's very important that we find people to look up to that have similar experiences. Okay. That's one of the reasons I got into coaching. It's because I'm like, listen, y'all, I was going through it and I made it out on the other side. Let me show you how. Okay. Oh, hey, everybody. Oh, thank you, Barb. I appreciate that. Okay. The micro steps are equally as important. We have to make it tangible. Hey, Diana, if it's not tangible, you're not going to do it. Okay, so like, let's say that we have like, I want to be a multimillionaire over here, but we're not making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a month or a year now. That is inconceivable. Your subconscious is not going to believe that over here. Okay, and how the heck do I even get over there? Right, like how do I get from where I'm at to a multimillionaire? Bring it down. Okay, scale it back. How can I get to $10,000 more worth of income next year? How can I get to $20,000 more? How can I get to $30,000 more? That's with any goal. You want to travel all over the world, but you're not traveling right now. How about you travel to the state next to you? Okay. And it's really about small stepping your way to that bigger identity, because when you do it like that, it makes it more tangible and you feel extremely successful. That is how I have completely shifted my whole entire reality, is having macro goals, but then every single day working on micro goals. What can I do today to help me further towards that goal? Like, there was a time where I was just working in busted down jobs, working 12-hour shifts, making nothing. Okay. And I was like, I'm going to be a multimillionaire coach, traveling all over the world, doing all this stuff, right? That's a big gap. Okay. And so I said, what can I do today to work on this goal? And I just asked myself that every single day. And I did something every single day. And what ends up happening is you think that that's going to take you a long time. That forward momentum, it really gets going. Again, these foundational things that we need to put into place, once you get those locked in, it is so much easier. I have people reach out to me all the time and they're like, oh my God, how did you do this? How did you build this whole thing? And I'm like, by asking myself every day, what can I do today, and believing that it's possible. That's it. That's literally it. I literally do that to this day. Every time I reach a new goal, I'm like, okay, well, what's the next one on the way to the macro? There'll be like multiple layers of goals, okay? And I'm like, I don't need to get here. I just need to get here. And then once I get here, now I'm going to get here. And I do that every single day. Okay. But you have to have macro goals, and you have to have micro goals. The micro goals get you the fuel to keep going. Okay. Because if you don't have those, you're going to burn out. And then the macro goals are what keep you going and get you out of bed. That makes you a very accountable person of like, well, I'm just going to keep at it until I get there. And you will get there. If you do this every single day, you will get there. If you implement these things that I'm talking about, like, you will get there. Okay. There's no way you can't. There's literally no way you can't, because you are incrementally shifting your identity to actually become the identity of that person who's living in that reality. The only reason that you can even have those macro goals, those big lofty goals, is because there's something within your soul that is saying, I know that I'm capable of that. I don't know how, but I just know that I can. Because you wouldn't have those dreams otherwise. Different people have different dreams for different reasons. Yours are tailor specific for you because there is a version of you out there that already has it. It's already been done. This is where we get into like quantum manifestation and parallel realities, which we don't have to get like super into right now. But there's a version that's been there, done that. Your job right now is to start to envision and embody that version and work towards it every day. If you believe that you can become that person, you will. And you work on it consistently. Okay, because it's already there. It's already happened. That's your future. That's when I'm talking to people about their soul contracts. I'm like, you have free will, and if you don't do those things, then it is what it is. But if you do decide to do them, then it's there for you. Like, it's already predestined. Okay, but it's your choice in the here and now whether you get there or not. Okay, because you don't have to. Okay, we have two more here. So imagination. Imagination is how you start to embody and identify your quantum twin, or that reality that is already done. You have to become the vibration and the frequency in the here and now in order to receive the right intuitive downloads and nudges and action steps. If you're taking action steps based off of your current consciousness, you're going to get the same results. That's why a lot of people get stuck and they're not making forward movement, because you're literally just channeling from who you are right now. Okay. But if you have these macro goals in mind, or even micro goals, and you learn how to envision and bring up those feelings within yourself as if that thing is already done. Like, I can get in my listen, this is something that takes time. Okay, this is muscle that you got to build. But I can get in my imagination now and literally feel the grass in my dream home. Like, I can lay in the grass outside and feel that. I can feel like I'm jumping in my pool at my new home. I can feel like my dog is running across the field and I'm just crying my eyes out, and like literally crying, because I'm just so happy that we made it here. And so proud of myself that I continued on my path and on my journey, even when times are really hard and challenging, but we got here anyway. And that is a different type of imagining. That's not even imagining. That is you finding the vibrational coordinates of that identity and embodying it and becoming it. Because when I feel into those goals and I actually feel as if they've already happened, I take completely different action steps than I would have as just me. Right? I am directly connected to that version of myself, and she is giving me the steps that I need to take. And 9 times out of 10, the steps that she tells me to take is getting in my imagination and embodying that frequency. So in order to do this right now, okay, this step, you have to do all those other steps that I said. Like, you have to get a handle on your thoughts. You got to regulate your central nervous system. You got to process your emotions. You got to rewire your beliefs in order to be able to get in these upper level frequencies in your Akashic records, in your soul contract, to embody that identity. They all work in tandem with one another. That's why in your self-concept, if you don't feel like you're worthy and deserving, you can't envision and embody yourself in that future reality. It's going to be inconceivable to you. Okay. Hello. Okay, so getting in your imagination, and that's muscle again that you have to build. So the more that you go in there, the stronger it gets. And then the more you start to embody those energetics throughout your day, you start to actually become that person and think like that person and feel those emotions that that person feels and believe those beliefs that that person feels of themselves, right? Because that's what we have to do to shift. Okay, last one here. I'm sorry about the music outside. Somebody's playing some beats out here. Okay, so embodying the energetics is what we're trying to get here. Okay, you got to hold boundaries with yourself. This is like when we were talking about with the observer state. When you have feelings and thoughts and emotions that don't align with that identity, you got to check yourself. You got to say, I am not participating in this. I understand that we're doing this because it's a safety trauma response, or maybe we've been addicted to stress and anxiety, but we have to make a different conscious choice here, and I'm going to hold a boundary with that, with ego, or even your inner children, in a loving way, right? In a loving way, just like you would with like a child outside of you, and being like, hey, I know that we have certain tools and resources, but I need to give you better ones, okay? Because you got to hold down the identity as much as you can throughout your days of the future you. So when you have those thoughts and feelings come up, and say, is this the type of thought and feeling that future me is thinking right now? And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a no. Okay, so that's where you have to come in and do this internal work and make those shifts. Excuse me. I quit the little gig jobs I was doing, have been full force uploading art to my Etsy, creating content. Sometimes you have to say no to things to redirect to the yeses. Like there's a lot of behavioral patterns that I was exhibiting and participating in, and I just had to be like, okay, well, is that version of me doing this? Are they participating in these relationships? Are they putting time and energy into doom scrolling on TikTok and numbing behaviors and drinking energy drinks and having these thoughts that are based in lack and scarcity and and I'm like, no. And is that always easy? And is it always instantaneous? No. Like sometimes it really takes a lot of time and effort and energy to work through behavioral patterns and triggers and things that aren't serving you. But again, you kind of just have to work on it day by day. Like there's still kind of times that come up for me where I'm embodying my old identity, my current identity, the one that has still like trauma and stuff running. But when I do catch it, I have to really implement those things and be like, no, I'm not going to allow this to continue. I'm not going to allow this to happen. Sorry. And I'll give you an example. So the other day I was laying on my bed, and I was just so burnt out and exhausted, just done. And there was this voice inside of my head that was like, get up. You need to get up. You need to be doing stuff for work. You need to be cleaning the house. Go clean out your car. You have a big old long to-do list. Get up. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. My physical vessel, because we talked about how they're different. I was like, my physical vessel needs to chill. I literally need physical rest. I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to listen to you. And so I continue to lay there. And then this other voice comes up. And it was like, let's go on a walk outside. And normally I would have been like, great, that's wonderful. Let's go do that, because regulating our central nervous system. But this time I said, why do you want me to go on a walk? I asked the thought, like, ask your thoughts. Okay. Because if you are just assuming you are your thoughts, they are controlling you. But if you ask them questions, they will respond back to you. So I said, why do you want me to go on a walk? And the thought said, because you're not doing anything. And I said, no. I said, no, ma'am. I said, I am not going to make a fear-based decision, because that leads to fear-based results. If my thought had come back to me and said like, oh, because it'd make you feel better, or it would raise your frequency, or it will get cortisol out, I would be like, yeah, you're right. That's great. But because it tried to shame and guilt me into a decision, I was like, I got to do the opposite. You have to be at the wheel of your consciousness and not let your ego or your thoughts or your emotions rule your reality. Is it okay that they're there? Absolutely. We love them. Okay. But you are the CEO of your life. You have executive decisions at the end of the day that you have to make over your thoughts, feelings, and actions. And so that's why all of these other processes that I was talking about, like the fundamental foundational principles, you have to put those in place first in order to get here. Okay? In order to get to those higher observation levels where you are not your feelings, thoughts, and emotions and trauma. Because that's the majority of, and not y'all necessarily, or people watching this live, because y'all are very self-aware beings. Okay? Like, y'all understand what I'm saying? But like the majority of the world who are not awakened and know these things and have these tools and resources, which is a lot of time not their fault because it's just society, they are their thoughts, feelings, and emotions and triggers and behavioral patterns. We here who have been on this journey know that we are not those things. Those are things that come with being a human and are part of this life journey, but we are above that as a multidimensional form. Is it okay to experience those things? Absolutely. It's part of being human. It's what you signed up for. Okay, to grow and evolve. You are in advanced cosmic class right now on this earth plane. Okay, you are becoming an extremely wise being that is revered by other people for being on this earth plane. Okay, because it'd be hard out here in these streets. So when you look at it in that capacity and say, wow, like I am such a self-aware, conscious being that loves to learn and grow, instead of looking at life as something that's just like constantly beating you down. Sometimes being in victimization mode is not helping anybody. And I'm not saying horrible things don't happen to people, because they definitely do. They've happened to me, and it's not my fault, not your fault, but you have like a responsibility to heal from those things. And sometimes it gets misconstrued of like, well, I didn't pick this reality. Like, why would I do this? You didn't pick it. It's your subconscious that did. Like, you have certain filter lenses and reality lenses that you're looking at life, and that's why you pull in negativity, is because that's probably all you saw as a child. Or you had very like narcissistic relationships that beat down your self-concept, and you weren't taught how to hold boundaries or process your emotions. Like, not your fault, but your subconscious is pulling that stuff in because that's the programming that you're running. So you've got to, again, be on the self-awareness journey and constantly picking up tools and resources to release those filter lenses. Because that's all it is. It's just filter lenses. Once you start removing those, you start having completely different experiences. If you are an awakened, empowered empath, your empathic abilities become your biggest blessing. Because that's how you get your manifestations. But if we were coming from disempowered places and low self-concepts and not doing these things, you pull in negative experiences and negative manifestations, or you get stuck. And so it's whatever lens that you want to look through and whatever you're working on, if that makes sense. Okay, does anybody else have any questions? Or if you're watching this in the future, you can leave your questions in the comments down here. So again, the best thing that I would do is ask yourself, is this an abundant thought? Is this a lack thought? Does this make me feel expansive? Does this make me feel constrictive? Again, foundational layeral healing and identity shifting. Is my central nervous system regulated? Am I processing my emotions? What kind of thoughts am I thinking? What kind of beliefs am I holding? What is my self-concept? Do I have macro and micro goals? Can I get in my imagination? And how long can I embody and identify that new version of myself throughout my day? Like, that is literally how you get there. All of those steps. And they work in layers and in tandem with one another. You should start a podcast. I used to have a podcast. It was called Soul Sessions, and I used to interview different energy healers. You can actually go on YouTube and find it. Soul Harmony Magic Soul Sessions. But these are my podcasts. If any of y'all have watched a lot of my workshops and lives, like, this is kind of my form of podcasting. Okay. So if you were resonating with the things that I was saying, or you resonate with my personality or teachings, and you want to work one-on-one in order to implement these things into your life and get to the root and clear out the beliefs and work on your self-concept so that you can make these identity shifts, you can go to my profile and click for all the different ways that we can work together. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can check in the description box down here below. I would also love to have you in the School of Magic. So this is your cosmic community of learning and support. We are doing monthly live calls, and so I can answer all your questions around spirituality and manifesting. You're going to get my inner child healing workshop, so you can get started on that, and my money manifesting masterclass, so you can work on your wealth consciousness. And you can meet other people, beautiful star beams from around the world. We're doing a whole bunch of fun things in there, so I would love to have you as well. And thank you all for joining me today. I very much appreciate you. I always love doing these chats. And I always learn new things too. It's very good. This is a beautiful thing about being an energy healer or a content creator, is I'm constantly hearing my own concepts back, and it's holding me accountable. Because if I'm telling you all this stuff, I need to be doing it. And I always get new like consciousness expansion and realizations as I am working these things out and helping other people. So it's a beautiful thing to help other people with coaching or courses or mentorship programs, because what you're ultimately doing is really healing yourself at the same time, and you're expanding your own evolution. So I'm pro like doing that all the live long day. So if you want to get deeper into energy healing or content creation, you can reach out to me as well. Okay, everybody, I hope you have a very magical day. This will be up on YouTube if you're watching live and you weren't able to catch the whole thing, and you can get all the steps in tandem with one another. And I hope